Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jai Lor, and I'm the Administrative Associate and the MCW Office of Community Engagement. Welcome to our March edition of our monthly series, CE Spotlights. Please note that this session is being recorded. I would like to begin with a statement from the Office of Community Engagement. We wish to acknowledge the Indigenous people who are past and present steward of the land in which we pursue and are just of a healthy community for everyone. To our audience members, please be sure that you're muted throughout the presentation. We encourage everyone to use the chat bar freely to share comments or post any questions to our guests. We will be monitoring questions throughout the sessions. And feel free to send them as they may come to you, and we will set aside some time at the end for Q&A. We hope that you will join us for future Spotlight presentation, which will take place on the second or third Wednesdays of each month. Please look for information about our upcoming guests on our CE website. You can find our series webpage by Googling MCW CE Spotlights. This month's series features community partners and the important work they do for and with our communities. We highlight their goals, motivations, accomplishments, and the way they partner with people and programs at MCW. Today, we are deeply honored to have Brett Fowler as our featured guest. We also like to thank our faculty members from our community engagement team, Dr. Leslie Ruffalo and Dr. David Nelson, who are serving as facilitators today. At this time, I would like to introduce our Senior Associate Deans for Community Engagement, Dr. Stacy Young, who will say a few words about Brett's important work for the community and their partnership with NCW. Dr. Young.
Thank you so much, Jai. And I just wanted to say Jai is the newest member of our community engagement team here at MCW, and we're so pleased to have you join us. So thank you so much. And I just have to say, you know, I get to hear the music selection along with everyone else for the first time at the beginning of the spotlight. I sort of like the surprise. So if you know your 80s music, I'm sure you've heard the first 3 notes and knew exactly what song it was. So great selection. So it's my pleasure to say a few introductory words about Brett Fuller. Brett Fuller has been the curriculum specialist for health and physical education within Milwaukee Public Schools since 2007. Milwaukee Public Schools, known as MPS, is Wisconsin's largest district with 166 health and physical education specialists in 158 schools. For more than 20 years, Brett's philosophy is centered upon educating students about how to be healthy for a lifetime. Brett works to share best practices around health and physical education in partnership with educators throughout Milwaukee and Wisconsin. He collaborated with MCW on an Advancing a Healthier Wisconsin Endowment sponsored project connecting physical education to after-school programming. He spearheaded a successful effort to reduce teen pregnancy in MPS schools, which has since become a model for other districts. Brett has been a tireless advocate for the health of underrepresented people and communities through his policy work around health instruction. He has presented and been published locally at the state level and nationally on topics ranging from bullying in physical education, sex education, equity, inclusion, and diversity. He has served on many local task forces, boards, and coalitions dedicated to improving the health of Milwaukee's youth. Some of these include the United Neighborhood Centers of Milwaukee, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Milwaukee, Milwaukee County Substance Abuse Coalition, Milwaukee Alliance for Sexual Health, Fight Asthma Milwaukee Allies, and the Governor's Council on Physical Activity and Health. He is a former president of Wisconsin Health and Physical Education and the acting past president of the Society of Health and Physical Educators, known as SHAPE America. Brett was recognized for his exemplary community engagement and partnership with MCW as a recipient of the 2020 President's Community Engagement Award. Brett has been an outstanding partner with us, and we're so excited to have him featured in today's spotlight. I would now like to introduce today's co-facilitators and my colleagues, Drs. Leslie Ruffalo and David Nelson. Dr. Ruffalo is an associate professor and the co-director of medical student education in the Department of Family and Community Medicine at the Medical College of Wisconsin. Dr. Ruffalo also holds faculty appointments in the Office of Community Engagement, the Kern Institute, and the Graduate School, where she is one of the founding faculty members of the Doctorate program in public health. Dr. Ruffalo defines herself as a community-engaged health researcher and educator and has worked extensively with neighborhoods and communities across the state of Wisconsin. Her research philosophy is to apply community-engaged research principles to answer research questions that are important to the community. She has applied this research approach to veterans' health, food security, school-based health and wellness, family caregiving, and rural health. Dr. Nelson is also an associate professor in the Department of Family and Community Medicine with expertise in partnership with diverse communities around important health issues. As a community-engaged researcher, he has worked extensively with communities throughout Wisconsin on projects around childhood obesity, promotion of health and wellness, supporting senior caregivers, homelessness and housing instability, and food security. His postdoctoral training in community-based participatory research instilled in him the importance of engaging communities throughout the research process as equal partners. His approach is to be culturally humble and to support the health needs of the community as they define those needs. So with that introduction of Brett Fuller and Drs. Ruffalo and Nelson, I turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Young, and it's so good to be here with our good friend and colleague, Brett Fuller, and thank you, Dr. Ruffalo, for joining in this co-facilitation today.
It is sorry, delay on my end. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you again, as David mentioned, to celebrate and to learn a little bit more about our good friend and colleague, Brett Fuller. And as you'll see kind of unfold here in our conversation today, Brett has been a very, very long-standing partner of the Medical College of Wisconsin, and both Dr. Nelson and myself having worked with them for the better part of 15 years, a decade and a half. So, I guess we can launch right into kind of our first question, kind of the warm up and icebreaker question here. Brett, we just want to learn more about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about, what brought you to your career in health and physical education. What has that journey been like for you? Who are the people along the way that have been really important in your journey? And just set the stage for us tonight.
Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for Medical College for inviting me to be here. It's been an honor being a partner with you guys for the last 15 years and with the people in the community. I truly do believe that that the work that I've done has been done by a group and this is not one person's work. And this is just, again, quite an honor. What brought me to Milwaukee, what brought me to my career? I grew up in Palmyra, Wisconsin, small town of 1,500 people, 370 people in my high school, 70 in my graduating class. In high school, I started realizing how much I kind of enjoyed teaching. I started working out Whitewater's martial arts club when I was in middle school. And by the time I was in high school, I was actually co-teaching classes. And so it was my first real experience teaching, starting in high school, and ended up going to Whitewater. One of the things that really made me choose physical education was, again, I had already started going that direction, but looking at family history. My father died my freshman year in college from heart disease at the age of 57. His father passed away at 57 from heart disease as well. And I realized that his lifestyle of the only ever time he did any physical activity was going deer hunting in the fall, was not the best. And so that started me in that direction, and it turned out to be an incredible career. I graduated in 1990 with my bachelor's, and ended up going to California for a year because we were in a teacher surplus at that time, especially for physical education teachers. I taught in the middle of the Mojave Desert for 1 year and said, not for me. I came back and started subbing and subbed at $50 a day and couldn't still find a job. And so in '93, January, I moved to Milwaukee and to start subbing in Milwaukee Public Schools. And I never thought I'd be someone who lived in the big city from the small town. Matter of fact, our chief of police was a friend of the family, and he jokingly said he'd get me a bulletproof vest, and then pulled me aside and explained that he had been a police officer in Milwaukee and said that, you know, don't believe everything you read or see. He explained that the crime rates in Milwaukee were exactly the same percentages in our small town of Palmyra. It just, the difference was the number of people. And that really made me feel at ease. But it became a place where I fell in love with working in our community and with our students. They have a huge need, and they need teachers who are going to hold them accountable, but care about them. And I think that's what I did when I was teaching. And I taught for about 14 and a half years in the district, and then saw the opportunity to take the position at the central office, and I was ready for a change. And I was fortunate enough to have a great department chair at the time, Bruce Dreyer, who really helped guide me and helped me become the teacher I was, and the administrative leader I am now at central office. And if David wasn't going to bring it up, we basically started at the same day. My first day in the job here at Central Services, I was told, oh, by the way, there's a grant we've written for 3 times. We haven't gotten it. We want you to try to write it. And Safe Schools, Healthy Students, a $9 million grant. And oh, and there's someone from medical college who's had experience with this type of work. We want you to meet him. And it was David's first day and my first day, and we've been working together for 15 years now. It was quite a journey. And you know, David and then Leslie and then Chris Simmons have been, I've always called my kitchen cabinet whenever I had an issue that I didn't think people in MPS would understand, and how could I move forward. They've had my back. And it just was, you know, it's just been an incredible journey. I would say also the one thing I learned being in that first week in that job is that as a teacher in our district, we are constantly hearing how bad MPS is and how bad Milwaukee is. It's in the media, it's in the news, everybody's against us. And I learned really fast how that's not the case. While we have challenges, everybody's not against us. And it is groups like Medical College of Wisconsin, Children's Hospital, United Way, American Heart Association, Fight As Milwaukee Allies, and others that I've worked with over the years, that they want to work and give freely to support our students and our families. And we just have to open up the doors and find ways to get them in the doors. And that's kind of been what I've tried to do for the last 15 years. So long story short.
You know, you really take the notion of teamwork and you take it to another level. And I love seeing all the pictures of all the schools and all the programs and all the things that you've done, literally from the local to the national level. And that is inspiring, and it's gratifying to see your growth in that area. But tell us, you know, one of the things that's been funny in 15 years is that we get to see kids grow up, we get to see families grow up, and tell us a little about who else is on your kitchen cabinet at the house, at the Fuller household.
Well, okay, so yeah, I always do that too. I get so caught up in the work that I forget about the most important person in my life is my wife. You know, Betty and I have been married 21 years. It'll be actually 21 years on April 7th. And I've been married my best friend. She's been an incredible partner over the years. We obviously have our challenges at times, but you know, that's the one thing that I've learned over the years, and actually learned from Bruce Dreyer, is that, you know, you really pointed out something to me early on, saying, you know, do you say that to her just to make yourself feel better, or to find out a way to solve the problem? Because, you know, sometimes, you know, you get heated with the people you love and you throw things out there, and it was an important lesson to learn. And Betty and I, not saying we don't squabble at times, but we always find a way to talk it out. And it sometimes takes a little time, and a little time means a couple hours sometimes, but we talk it out. But she does everything, and she's been so supportive of everything that I do, even when it takes time away from her and the family. And then we're blessed to have two incredible children. You saw some of the pictures from the Boy Scouts. Those are primarily dealing with my son's troop and before then Cub Scouts. Noah turned 18 on Christmas. He's a Christmas baby. He just received his Eagle, and I just literally got the notification letting you know, Mr. Nelson here, that his ceremony to receive his Eagle pin will be on May 7th. So we got to get that on the calendar. But we just literally got that about 20 minutes ago. And then I've got an incredible daughter, Rachel. She is 16, and two incredible kids. One of the things that, and it was probably going to come up, but I am retiring in September. And this is the type of children I've raised. Is we were having a conversation on a drive down to Betty's in-laws last year, and we're talking about college, and I made the comment. I said, well, maybe I shouldn't retire if it means Noah and Rachel won't be able to do everything we planned when it comes to college. And Noah said, I'll do something else. You need to retire, Dad. And so very selfless young man, and I really appreciate the man he's become, and Rachel's going to be just as good. So thank you.
I love seeing your children grow up, and the love and respect you have for your wife as well, and that you truly are a partnership. Everybody thinks of when we often think of you, we think of physical education, but you're also part of the idea of the health of MPS. Can you speak to? I really want to focus on some of the big wins that you've had in health and physical education over the years. And there's been some big ones. Can you speak into a couple of things over the last 30 years, which you really are proud of and that you want to let our audience know about?
Well, if we're talking the last 30 years, within physical education in general, there's been some huge changes in my career. When I graduated in 1990, there were no standards for physical education or health education in the country. Those came, they started being talked about in the 80s, in the late 80s, but they didn't come about until the mid 90s. So that was a first step, is that, like other content areas, we needed to have standards as well. And so that was exciting. And big changes happened throughout my career. That was one of the biggest. There's other things that have changed though too. It's frustrating as a physical education teacher and a health teacher, but if physical education comes to the forefront, when you talk with people and either they love their physical education teacher or their physical education experience, or they hated it. You talk to a lot of people, they hated the fitness testing. I still see some value in fitness testing, but I've changed my professional opinion about that recently, and we're no longer requiring it in MPS as a requirement. That was a change, a recent change, but I still see some value to it. But think what do people hate? If they say they hate something, they hated dodgeball. That's one of my proudest moments in the physical education world, is that being part of a national committee, I chaired the revisions of the dodgeball position statement for the Society of Health and Physical Education Teachers, which is our national professional association. And dodgeball is a fine game if it's not for someone who's forced to play it. In a physical education setting, everybody's forced to play the activities we're doing. And so the problem with dodgeball is it can be a bullying activity. And I'm not saying it causes bullying, because David and I might be playing a game of dodgeball and we're playing against another team, and Leslie's on that team, and we gang up on Leslie. And we're not doing it to bully her, but we're doing it because it's smart to target more than one person at one target. The problem is people who are playing dodgeball, who usually win at dodgeball, are the athletes. And when you talk about bullying, bullying has three specific components. One of them is perception of power. Okay, the athletes, they're the ones that have got the perception of power over the non-athletes. The second one, it's a repeated offense. Well, we're playing dodgeball for a week in a PE class. There's a lot of repeated offenses there. And then the third one is the intent to bully. And so while David and I didn't have that intent, what if the target, Leslie, had been a bullied student, a child growing up? She would feel like she's being bullied. So I'm very excited that this is something that our National Association has stood against for a couple of decades now, and I had a hand in bringing it to more modern language and time. Another win for us really was around health education. When I first started in this role, I was soon talking to a community partner. It was who said, "Hey, did you know that you need to review your sex education curriculum every 3 years under your board policy and state statute?" I said, "No, I didn't know that." So we started working with United Way, and we revised our curriculum right around this time that they came up with a goal with the teen pregnancy prevention group to reduce teen pregnancy in Milwaukee by 46% by 2015. So this was 2007, 2008. And I was at that community meeting when it was announced by Bevan Baker, the health commissioner at the time. And I snickered out loud, and 40 people in the room all looked at me at the same time, and I'm the new person in the room. And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm in education. We don't work in 46%. We work in 3 to 5% changes, not 46. And as part of that community effort, that was not an MPS effort, it was a community effort to reduce teen pregnancy, we said we will start doing lessons at every grade level, starting in 5-year-old kindergarten through high school health class, which there's only one required class in health, and got it passed through the board. And we provide, and then we started tracking, which we'd never done before, tracking implementation. It's still self-report, and we all know the challenges with self-report, but I have evidence from schools that almost 35 to 40,000 youth are getting our sex education curriculum every year, annually. Is it all of our students? No, but not all of our students have health. Sophomores or seniors don't have health, and our K3 and K4 kindergarten don't have health either. So that's a big portion of our thing, but I'd say about 80% of our students are receiving it. The neat thing about that curriculum is that it's online. It was built with I made it clear we're getting public money to have this. So it's going to be free to anybody who wants to use it. So it is on our website for anybody to use. It needs to be updated. The last time we did a revision was 2005, and we were going to do it 2 years ago, and things kind of fell apart. Obviously, we're right now in the process of revising our high school curriculum. But I would have said that my most proud professional moment was in 2013, 2 years early, when I was called to a press conference, and Mayor Barrett at the time said that we not only have met our goal of reducing teen pregnancy 2 years earlier, we surpassed it, and it was at 50%. Beat the 46% 2 years early. We're sitting right now at about 60% less teens, 12-year-olds to 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds not being pregnant now than we were back in 2007. I mean, that's a huge win. So those are two of the real big changes and things that I'm very proud about.
Thanks for that response, Brett. I'm going to change gears a little bit. In your introduction, and of course I know this about you, but in David's word was team player. You're like the ultimate team player. And you rattled off some of the organizations and initiatives that you've partnered with over the years. Can you share a little bit about kind of what is your philosophy on partnerships, and what have you learned about what it takes to be an effective partner when you're collaborating with these multiple agency, multiple institutional partnerships? I mean, certainly, again, David and I have seen you shine in this space, but what's the recipe to be an effective partner?
I think the recipe to being an effective partner is to listen and then try to find a place for that partnership to thrive. I mean, let's be honest, not everyone who wants to come work in our community understand our community. And so they come in with preconceived notions. And so the idea then is listen to what they have to offer, try to coach them to help them understand you're not coming here to fix our kids. Our kids aren't broken, okay? But help them understand to better phrase what they're trying to really do. But then try to match them up where they can do the most good. And in some cases, it's saying, sorry, this is not the right time. I got in a little bit of trouble with the press, and at one point because early, it was like 2008, someone wrote a grant to do to improve sex education outcomes within Milwaukee Public Schools, and it was $50,000 a year for 2 years. That sounds great. Well, they wanted to actually provide a program, have us actually provide their program in our school, on all of our schools. The numbers that they said wasn't realistic for the amount of money that they were offering. And then the best part about it was not comprehensive sex education. It was abstinence until marriage curriculum. And so I said no. And then after I said no, I told my boss, yeah, I told them no, and she agreed with me, thank goodness at the time. And then the next thing we know, we're in the newspaper saying that MPS turned down $100,000 to reduce teen pregnancy. You know, so then we have made systems for when people are wanting to write grants. This is, again, it's not just me, I'm saying we, it is MPS. And even partnerships. I just had a conversation with a partner the other day. It's like, well, we're going to write this grant, and we don't even need a letter from you, but we want to do it in MPS school. So we'll write it and we'll let you know if we get it. I'm like, no. You still have to do our partnership intent form, because we do not want you writing something that we cannot possibly fulfill. And so it's really important that we lay out that communication to make certain that everybody is successful and that we're meeting the needs of our schools, which means meeting the needs of our students. It's got to be students first. And I think those are the big things. It's like, find a place where they're at. Listen, you got to listen to your partners. And like I said, it was so a real eye opener. And that was probably the biggest shock for me, coming to central office, the number of people and community agencies who want to support us.
That's phenomenal. You know, I was wondering if you could tell the audience a little bit about what it was like to lead a national organization like SHAPE and that idea of partnership at a national level. Can you speak into that, please?
Oh, that's a tough one, David. So, as I said, my biggest supporter has been my wife. And I had been on the SHAPE America Board of Directors, and I was coming into my third year, and we were at a meeting, and I mentioned to our CEO, Stephanie Morris, that I was looking forward to rolling off the board, because I'd been on a board either at SHAPE America or our state association at that point for about 11 years. And I said, I just looking forward to having a little bit of a break. And she said to me, funny, you should mention that. I want you to run for president. And I was really, again, and I didn't even want to be on the board of directors originally. Someone else said, hey, Brett, you should run. And I almost fell to the chair when they asked it, because it did not cross my mind. But so I decided to run and got the nomination to run, to be elected, because it is an election. And then this is my last year as a board member, as a 3-year term. And our presidency is a 3-year term as a president-elect, a president, and a past president. And I, in January, had just got that news, was telling my superintendent, he was excited about it. And I got a phone call from the current president saying that the current president-elect had to resign, and they wanted me to take over. So I'd be taking over a year early. And it was confirmed by a vote that year. But the craziest thing is that was 2 years ago. And so Jamie, the past president, or the president at the time, was just finishing his term when we ended up going into COVID. And so leading at the national level during COVID was really a strain. Obviously, we canceled our national convention. That had a huge impact on our partners, most of them who are vendors or people like that. And at the same time COVID hit, then we had the social justice crisis that boiled over with George Floyd. And I had been struggling for a while because I didn't have a year to plan what my theme and my focus was going to be for my presidency. My presidency starts in April. And what ended up happening is COVID hit, and it was really amazing, just simply amazing. There's something right now called teachers pay teachers. I hate it, absolutely hate it. It's teachers will create lessons and say, hey, I spent all this time on my own time creating this. Hey, you can have it if you pay me. You know, it's kind of like you know, these GoFundMe sites and things like that, which I don't mind, but I really don't like teachers pay teachers, because I've always been a belief that you give back to your profession, you give back to the group, and that's why I've served, and I've always felt I'm a servant leader when I've been doing this work in the associations. And I was absolutely astounded and shocked at watching at our health and PE community coming together and trying to address how they're going to support each other during dealing with two national crises at the same time. And so my theme became Stronger Together. And I focused on supporting each other during that year of my presidency, both how do we address the concerns around COVID, and then how do we address what was happening with social justice in our community. And it was really important to make certain that we try to tackle both of those. I was proud of in my last year, or my second year on the board of directors, we started a Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force in Shape America, because we've got some significant structural racist problems in our national association. And we'd been talking about it for 2 decades. We got to address them, but nothing was happening. And during and a matter of fact, I actually talked at the time, I said, we should make it a committee because the task force is temporary. It became on as a task force. And I was really proud that during my presidency, it has now become a standing committee in Shape America. And I think this speaks then to partnerships, as David was saying, because it will help expand our partnerships. We've seen actually more partnerships evolving because of it, especially around some historically Black colleges and universities, HBCSUs, that had not been doing much work with us, and we're actually reaching out to them more than we ever have before. So I think it's one of those things that you need to, again, go listen and be open to saying, hey, how can this group partner with us? They may not normally have that same vision, but they're putting out that olive branch. Let's find a way to make it work.
Thank you, Brett. That's wonderful. Let's go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that response and your sharing of kind of what's happening at the national landscape, and you know, as a current partner of yours in our weekly meetings, have really enjoyed and been enthusiastic about hearing some of those EDI conversations that are happening again within Shape America, and how that trickles down and impacts how we approach our work, and really again bring on that EDI perspective in all that we do. So I do want to shift gears just subtly here and just kind of go over to the chat here and kind of get into the weeds of the practicalities of physical education in today's environment. And so this question comes from Christine Zeller. So we can all acknowledge that, you know, everyone has different abilities, but practically speaking, what strategies do you recommend that physical education and wellness teachers employ to just level the playing field so that our students feel encouraged to participate and feel good about what they can contribute to physical education classes?
Yeah, I'm going to come to that in just a second, because when you were talking the transition there, it made me think of something that I'm very proud of. I've always felt like that I want to be leading and not following when it comes to stuff around health and physical education. And so our SWIFT group that is HW funded, we made a commitment 2 years ago that we would start every meeting with a mindful moment. And boy, on a Tuesday afternoon, I'll tell you, I need it a lot of times. And then we also then do some learning around equity, diversity, inclusion. It's personal learning for us, but also then how does it tie back to our group? What is so gratifying to me is that I explained this process to our chief academic officer, and that process is now going to be adopted in our entire office. That when you have these monthly meetings or these standing meetings, that we're going to start making certain we have these conversations around equity at the beginning. And again, and that all started with a great group of partners that they're at the table weekly, and I'm thrilled by that. Specifically, you're actually hitting a tough point for me in physical education. We've made a lot of progress over the last 30 years, as I said. But teachers want to teach the way they're taught. I truly believe that they fall back into old habits. They might do this great professional development, but I know so many teachers that still do what they did when they were in school. And it's a constant challenge, and one that we're focusing on right now within MPS. Other districts around the state and around the country, not all of them, but others, and the districts that are doing well, they are providing more choices to their students at the high school level. And so in Wisconsin, you have to have 1.5 credits of physical education earned over 3 separate school years. And so currently, we're looking at our data and looking at failure rates, and all of curriculum instruction, not just health and PE. We're asked to look at, are there systems in place that are actually detrimental to students graduating because of their failure rates? So you have a student who absolutely detests doing team sports. That's what we do in our freshman PE class right now. It's all team sports with the exception of a swim unit and a fitness unit in the weight room. Sophomore level, we get to a course that we currently require that is specifically no team sports. It is all about the lifetime activities that adults should be using to be physically active for a lifetime. We want to introduce that. And then it's the junior and senior level that we recommend doing electives. Most of my schools are doing lifetime sports. Guess what they're doing in that lifetime sports? Team sports. So we are making some changes, and we've been trying to do this for years. And but we've just made a decision literally this last week that starting in the 23-24 school year, because schools are already programmed for next year, we are going to not have 2 required PE classes. We will move our sophomore level class about lifetime fitness activities. We'll add swim to that. And then that will become our freshman introduction to physical education. And then we are going to recommend electives for the sophomore and junior or senior level classes. And this is the type of model that I think is going to be most effective. Students, when I was in high school, when I was in elementary school, if I asked my teachers what we're learning, and they say, hey, we're going to do softball. Well, why are we learning this? You know what the answer would have been? Because I said so. And we've been teaching our teachers in this district, not just health and physical education, for the last 10 years, that you need to have a learning intention for every class. That learning intention is your lesson objective. What do you want them to learn? It's not what they're doing. It's what they're learning. I might be teaching a volleyball unit, but they might be learning about sportsmanship because that's one of our standards that day. But then you have to have a learning, the lesson, what we call a success criteria, excuse me. And that is how do students know that they're successful in your class? Well, that is, they know that they're successful when we give them in student language. Our students need to know why they're learning stuff now, not just because we tell them to do so. And that's not just in physical education. But from my perspective, for health and physical education, this is really important. I would say also that going to health education to answer some of this as well. Too many years, we all, child of the 80s and 90s, remember G.I. Joe, knowledge is power, right? If you think of what they used to say, knowing is half the battle. It probably is. The other half is learning skills. And so we're shifting all of our health education to skill-based, where we're teaching students how to analyze influences, how to access health information, how to have interpersonal communication, goal set, decision make, advocate for their own health, the health of their family and their community. These are all skills. These are actually all our standards. And so instead of lecturing students about all the information around smoking is bad for your health, which everybody knows, but they still smoke, we got to teach them the skills to be healthy for a lifetime. Hopefully I got to that answer.
I think you did, and I want to build on it for one moment, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nelson. But I think for me personally, one of the most profound things that I think it'll just stick with me for the rest of my life is, and I'm just going to share it with our group here today. So Brett once told me, I don't know, we were just talking philosophically about what is the purpose of physical education today. And I remember this is like a direct quote that just like, again, just burned into my brain. He's like, Leslie, the goal of physical education is no longer, or maybe it never was, to get kids physically fit. And you can hear, you know, as Brett talked about how much limitation we have with time spent, with the time our students spend in PE, that we're not going to get kids fit in that amount of time. That the goal of physical education is to create this orientation to lifetime fitness within our students. So I think you're really hitting on that, Brett. For our audience today, is there anything you'd like to add about that, to that philosophical orientation of orientation to lifetime fitness, just to kind of round it out?
So, you know, one of my heroes is Dr. John Rady, a Harvard professor who wrote a book called Spark. It's about exercise in the brain. I have a stack of them over here that I give to, that I have here that I give to principals, new superintendents, new directors of curriculum instruction, and chief academic officers. Say, read the first chapter. If you read this, you understand what we should be doing in physical education. And it's all about the benefits, that book's about the benefits of physical activity and the brain. I've always had this, this idea that a healthy mind equals a healthy body, and vice versa. But that's part of that philosophy you have in your profession. And that started with me, and it's evolved over time. What does that orientation to lifetime fitness mean? That we provide students the skills, the knowledge, and then hopefully help them develop, support them in developing the attitude to be physically active for a lifetime, and to make those healthy choices. And that's that orientation to lifetime fitness and wellness. So thank you for that, Leslie.
So proud of you, and so glad that you're our friend, and that you stand for what is good and just in the community. Brett, I want to talk about a tough topic, and we all hate the pandemic and what COVID has done to our community with the morbidity and mortality even. You know, but I want you to frame it in such a way, how has the pandemic impacted the district? And if you could talk about the resiliency of your teachers and what they've done to maintain a positive attitude and still support health and wellness in the district, and not just for physical education, but if you have any other examples of what teachers have done, we'd love to hear about it.
Well, we're still in the middle of this right now, and this is really is a tough topic. The thing, and we just had this conversation with a couple of teachers today too, because we talk a lot about trauma in our district, and the pandemic has been traumatic, you know. So the other thing then too is we just did interviews for a new position in my office today, and I was having a conversation with one of the candidates, because he's a longtime PE teacher, and his sister is a physical education teacher as well, and came to our district for 1 year. And her first year teaching, she was at one of our schools, and one of her students died from gun violence, and she ended up leaving us. You know, and at the time we talked about that was a traumatic experience for her, you know, through secondary trauma, and we don't recognize that enough. And I think that's the thing that I want people to realize, is that, thank goodness, our district, we've had some incredible work done by our school social work and school psychological departments around trauma-informed schools and support for teachers and staff, and our students. And so I think that some of that resiliency comes because all of our teachers have received annual training on trauma. And new teachers, there's specific training modules that they go through. So I think that has been supportive. But our teachers are tired. They're exhausted, especially at our high schools, because at the elementary school, if you have a sub, they'll double up classes sometimes, and that's exhausting enough. Our PE teachers, for the most part, are still then teaching their physical education classes. A few of them are on a weekly basis being asked to go and sub for a day in a classroom. But for the most part, our principals are realizing that our students need that physical activity outlet that they get from physical education, so they're not doing that. But our high schools, it's a different story. If you don't get a sub at a high school, you can't take 2 high school classes and put them together. It's really hard to do that because you don't have the space. We don't have the space at the elementary school either. So what is happening is our teachers, who normally have a prep every day for one of the class periods and might have a duty as well, they're teaching the whole day. They have no breaks. And some schools, they may be doing that 4 days a week or more. They might be doing it all 5 days a week. So our teachers are tired. They're exhausted. And all I can do is try to help them move forward and just tell them, take care of yourself on the weekend. Find that way, that thing that actually relaxes you, and go out and do those walks, preach our own medicine, be physically active. So they're sticking with it, but I've never heard so many teachers talk about quitting the profession and or retiring early as I do right now. And that scares me because we're in the middle of a teacher shortage.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about that, because I don't think people realize how tough it really is on people. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and just to kind of build on that, as we kind of start to wind down a bit here, you know, one of the things I've appreciated about our conversation this afternoon has almost been kind of your myth busting here. Your myth busting about MPS or about the profession of physical education. And so I think what might be our final question here before opening up to the audience, if they have any additional questions, would be, and it's kind of a two-part question. So, you know, is there anything else, Brett, that comes to your mind about things that you feel that all of us should know about, that would be helpful for all of us to know about the profession of physical education and health and wellness, or about MPS? What are those unheard of things that we as just the general public just don't get to see behind the curtain that would really be helpful for us to just continue to grow that appreciation for the profession of physical education, but also the school district that is in the backyard for many of us here with Milwaukee Public Schools?
So I would start with two things. Number one is I am very proud of the work that our physical education health teachers do in our district. In the last 15 years, we've had 7 or 8 state health or physical education teachers of the year. Okay, so don't tell me that we don't have good teachers in our district. And I'm very proud of every one of those teachers for the work that they do for our kids. The other thing then too is at the state convention, I do this urban education session every couple of years to try to explain exactly that myth busting thing. I tell people that this is not the movies, this is not television. Do we have challenges in our schools? Absolutely. I will not whitewash anything. Do we have fights in our schools? Yes, we do. Guess what? So do the suburban schools. Do we have a lot of poverty? Absolutely. But I would invite anybody who wants to come and visit a school, send me an email. We'll go for a walk, and I'll show you reality. I'll show you what our kids are going through, but then I'll show you all the teaching. And the myth busting is not just for people outside our district. I have a new staff member who works directly for me now. He's a coach in the district, phenomenal coach. He had taught his entire year in MPS at a K-8 building, and good school, but he's got tough kids. He's got kids who've got a lot of issues like everybody else does. He went on site visits with me at the beginning of the year, and we went to a high school. And we were sitting there, and he was just looking around shocked the whole time. And we were there for about 45 minutes, and he goes, "Okay, Brett, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm shocked." And what are you shocked at? Because here's a lifetime MPS employee. He's been with us for 20 years plus. I'm shocked I haven't seen a fight yet. He says, "I thought every high school there would be fights all the time." And that's not the case. But so it's not even just the myth busting within the community or outside the community or the state as a whole. It's even within our own schools where we got to explain to people that, you know what, not all high schools, you're not going to see fights all the time. I rarely saw fights, and I taught at the toughest school in the district at the time, Marshall High School. You're also not going to see, another myth, just going to throw it out there. All the good schools are not on the south side. I'm sorry. We've got phenomenal schools on the north side as well. And but people believe the South Side are the better schools. It's a lie. It's not true. You do your research. If you want to have your kids go to a good school, do the research, look at the state report cards, and you're going to see some challenging schools. You're also going to see some schools that are some of the best in the state.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Gosh, it just reminds me of just, gosh, as humans, we're so prone to just leaning into assumptions that we have. You know, I think at this time, again, we're kind of closing out here, but I would invite anyone that has a question for Brett, please feel free to unmute or, you know, again, please pose your question in the chat. I also think, I know we have a couple of wrap-up slides. If we want to toss them up on the screen, I think that would be, now's a good time to do that here. Yeah. Perfect. And I also, you know, Brett, in closing out these slides here, I don't know, you're probably not checking out the chat here, but several kudo comments here in the chat. One coming from a K through high school alumni talking about their excellent physical education experience that they had. Another individual commenting about how they're excited to have their daughter start pre-K, 4K at MPS in the fall. So beautiful. So thank you all for joining us for yet again another monthly Community Engaged Spotlight. Brett, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and sharing your wisdom and your journey with us. I feel inspired and just so grateful for the work that you've done and the teams that you've led to achieve that work. We would invite all of you to consider donating. Up here on the screen, we have Brett has selected the Milwaukee Public Schools Foundation and the students they serve as this month's spotlight for donations. And again, we'd like to, as Jai mentioned in his opening remarks, we'd like to invite you all to join us again next month on Wednesday, April 20th at 4 p.m. as we spotlight Miss Keisha Jones for our next session. And then I think we have one final update slide, I think, possibly, or this might be the last one here. Okay, I think that is the last one. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for your time this evening. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again. And it's been a pleasure. Take care, everyone. Thank you.